Hello everyone, today I will be power scaling all of the hand-drawn 2D Disney animated movies. From Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to Princess and the Frog. We will not be discussing any of the TV shows unless they directly tie into a Disney movie. Therefore, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, Recess, American Dragon, and other shows like that will not be covered. How this list will work is there's F tier, Woodland Critters, D tier, Disney Princesses, C tier, Disney Princes and other Disney males, B tier, Magic Users, A tier, Superhumans, and finally S tier, God or godlike beings. Now, of course, there are some woodland critters who can tear apart a Disney princess, some Disney princesses who can totally kick a Disney prince's ass. Hell, there's even one woodland critter who can totally give a haymaker to most of the characters on this list. At the very end of this video, I will quickly recap who's the weakest character and who's the strongest. Now, obviously, there's something I might miss in this video, and some of you guys might actually debunk something I say. Very unlikely, but it's totally possible. So in the future, I might make a follow-up video. Now, one more thing before we begin, power scaling is pretty subjective, especially when we're talking about old stuff from Disney. Power scaling really wasn't on the writers' minds. So this is just my opinion, and if you disagree with it, cool. Leave your thoughts in the comments section down below. At the bottom of the list, we have F tier, also known as Animal tier. This is where all the woodland critters will go, such as Basil from The Great Mouse Detective, Bernard and Bianca from Rescuers, the mouse from Dumbo, and other small rodents. I'm gonna put the mouse from Dumbo at the very bottom of the list, mainly because we never see him fight or do anything that adventurous. But the next two mice who rank just above him, Bernard and Bianca, are extremely venturous. Hell, they even got 2 movies on the big screen. How many hand-drawn Disney characters can say they got one of those? However, aside from being adventurous, they don't really look like they'll be all that great in a fight. Hell, I think you could easily argue that the mouse from Dumbo might actually be above them, because Bianca is a woman, and Bernard is, someone who doesn't seem like he skips on second breakfast. He's fat! Out of all of the rodents, in terms of intelligence, Baskel of Basil Street is easily at the top of the list. Sure, Bernard and Bianca are adventurous, but they only go on adventures when they're ordered to. But Baskel goes on adventures himself. He's always looking for a new thrill. He's very good at getting out of traps and using whatever is available to him. Like that one time he made a makeshift flying machine. Also, he has a gun, which would have been pretty useful if he brought it with him to confront Ratigan. But of course, in terms of combat ability, Ratigan is clearly above him. And yes, it's made clear in the movie that Ratigan is almost as smart as him. He was able to avoid getting caught by Baskel for years, which makes sense since rats are way smarter than mice. Now granted, Ratigan does have an extremely unfair advantage. He's a fucking rat, voiced by Vincent Price. Now personally, if I made a mouse version of Sherlock Holmes, I would have had the villain be Moriarty. Fuck you, I think it's clever. But there is at the very least one mouse who I think can totally take down Ratigan, and that's the Australian mouse from Rescuers Down Under. He's extremely adventurous, he has a rope, a boomerang, and the absolute mad lad took down a snake. Keep in mind, he lives in Australia, one of the most dangerous continents on the planet. So for him, taking down that snake was probably just another day for him. Call me when Ratigan does the same to a snake. As for the mice from Cinderella, while it is impressive that they took down a cat, they had to do that through teamwork. But speaking of the mice from Cinderella, Jack, the mouse in the red outfit, was able to easily dodge a punch from Gus. Now I know what you're thinking. Jar, how does that make him more impressive than a mouse who took down a snake? Are you going to explain to us that Gus is way more powerful than we really think he is? No, I'm not. The only reason why Jack is actually much higher on this tier list than any other rodent, in fact I would put him in D or C tier, is because he has a human form in Cinderella 2. If he can easily dodge a punch from a guy who's the same size as him, in his human form, I have no doubt that he can take down a snake. And of course, a lot of the other small woodland critters like the birds, the frogs from Princess and the Frog, Thumper the rabbit, and other very small woodland critters would roughly go right here on the list. But definitely not the firefly from Princess and the Frog. Trust me, that guy is way more powerful than you might think. Then we have cats, with Lucifer from Cinderella in his base form, probably being the weakest, since he got his kitty ass kicked by a bunch of mice, and he's extremely fat. If you're wondering where the cat from Pinocchio is, is, they go in the woodland critters section, due to them only being a kitten. The same goes for Oliver from Oliver and Company. Most of the other cats are pretty even with each other, but the top of the cat tier list is obviously the orange cat from Aristocats, since he was able to go toe-to-toe with an old, out-of-shape human. Now we move on to where things get a little bit more interesting. The dogs. At the bottom I would put Todd from Fox and the Hound. Now I understand foxes aren't really dogs, but they are closer to canines than cats. Despite being a house fox, he adapted to the wild, and was smart and fast enough to dodge a fire trap. As for the weakest of the real dogs, we have Pongo from 101 Dalmatians. He's never shown any combat prowess, or even parkour. Just good tracking skills, and is able to survive in snowy wilderness. Plus, Dalmatians are so inbred that they are prone to blindness. Hell, I think it's also canon that his wife is also his sister. Incest ain't wincest for genetics. Next is Dodger from Oliver and Company, a dog who can go toe-to-toe and beat Doberman pinchers. He also knows badass parkour, being able to easily move around a busy, construction-filled city. But out of all of the dogs, I say the top spot goes to Tramp. He's taken on whole groups of dogs by himself, and in Lady and the Tramp 2, it's confirmed that no dog catcher has ever caught him. Other junkyard dogs talk about him like he's a legendary warrior, and he's been shown to take down a dog catcher himself, with a little help from his son, that is. This dog's bite is certainly worse than his bark. Now, before you guys ask, well, what about Cerberus from Hercules? What do you guys think? He's going up way higher on this list, of course. Now we are finally done with the basic animals, and we are moving on to humans. Of course, there are just way too many humans to list off from all the Disney movies. But you can use your common sense that a full-grown woman can probably beat a child. Let's go through the children real quick. Consider this, I don't know, E tier. Most of them don't have any notable traits. Except for two. Arthur from Sword in the Stone, and the kid from Black Cauldron. Only because, well, they have magic swords. While Arthur does have the experience of having the body of different animals, the kid from Black Cauldron has at least shown to have some combat experience, and you know, the sword at least showed what it could do. Okay, enough with the kids. Now let's move on to the Disney princesses, and we'll see just how many of them can take on the Tramp. At the bottom we have Snow White, since she is shown to be just a damsel in distress, who fainted in the middle of a forest. She's also canonically only 14. Yeah, Tramp would tear her apart. Sleeping Beauty is next, since she is the most bland of all the princesses. So we know the least about her. Yeah, Tramp would tear her apart. Then Cinderella. Well, she's also a bit of a damsel. She's shown to fight for herself in the sequels, and in all the movies she's shown to be a hard worker. She probably gained at least a little muscle mass, and of course calluses. I was going to do Belle next, but I think I'll even put Cinderella above her. Yes, Belle is also a bit of a damsel, but at least she has some experience working, but of course not as much as Cinderella. Yeah, Tramp would tear these two apart. Tiana from Princess and the Frog is also a hard worker, and she's been shown to survive in the wild for a very long time as a frog. Tramp would tear her apart. Now we start getting to the more powerful Disney princesses, such as Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Being that she's a mermaid, she is used to great changes in water pressure. Even when she was turned into a human, she was able to swim up to the surface very quickly, but she hasn't shown that much in way of combat prowess. In the water, if she was in her mermaid form, she could easily drown Tramp, but in her human form on land, yeah, Tramp would tear her apart. Pocahontas knows how to hunt, survive without any technology that the other princesses had at their disposal. But most importantly, out of all the princesses, she's shown to have the most courage, which is very useful in a fight. You don't want to be freezing up. I would say her and Tramp are on pretty equal footing. It could go either way. But now we finally get to a princess who actually has some combat skill, Mulan. She's been able to keep up with full-grown warrior men despite living a soft life. She knows how to use a sword with all the force of a raging fire and everything else from that banger of a song. She's proficient in staffs, throwing weapons, disarming, and even fireworks as well. But what's most impressive is her combat intelligence. She was able to disarm a Hun war chief. Using a firework missile, she was able to cause an avalanche, destroying an army, and even got Captain Cheng to question his sexuality. I have no doubt in my mind that she would be able to tear apart the Tramp. Now some of you may be thinking, wait a second, what about that Atlantis movie? Where does that princess go? Well, just like with the Firefly from Princess and the Frog, she's going up much higher on this list. Now we are moving on to Disney princes and other males. Let's see how many of them could beat Mulan in a fight. First, we have Jack and Lucifer in their human forms. They're not very used to these bodies, so I'm pretty sure Mulan could take them both out without using any weapons. As for the first prince we're getting to, at the bottom we have the prince from Snow White. He literally does jack shit. Then Naveen from Princess and the Frog. He's a party animal, and he doesn't do much shit. But he survived in the wild as a frog, so that's 1 point for him, I guess. But honestly, he probably wouldn't have been able to survive without Tiana's help, so I wouldn't even put him above her. Next is adult Bambi, because he took on another deer and those horns are pretty impressive. In fact, he could probably take down both of the previously mentioned princes at the same time, but Tramp could still tear him apart. Then there's the prince from Cinderella. He appears to not really do anything in the first movie, but in later movies he's shown to know how to use a sword, and also knows how to do parkour. He jumped out the window of a balcony in Cinderella 3. In fact, I think that became an internet meme. He could probably survive a little bit against Mulan, but I think she could still kick his ass. I know you're all probably sick of me bringing up the Tramp tearing someone apart. But do you know who can tear the Tramp apart? Simba! He's a lion, enough said. Now for the last fox on our list, Robin Hood. He's a furry, so he automatically loses points. Not because he's a cringy furry, mind you, but because an anthropomorphic fox would logically be weaker than the average human. Except for when it comes to things like biting, and he's more than likely pretty fast. I know you're probably getting sick of me saying this word. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to keep saying it, but he's pretty good at parkour. He's extremely stealthy, and great at disguising himself. But of course, the most amazing thing about him is his shooting skills. Being able to split an arrow right down the middle, while it's already in the target. This may sound outright superhuman, but there are archers in real life who can do this. Hell, there are even archers who can split an arrow while it's still in midair. Next is Shang from Mulan. He's proficient in the sword, firework bombs, bows and arrows, and just a whole bunch of other weapons. He has armor, which is always a plus. But some of his more impressive feats have to do with his strength and durability. He gave 2 weights to Yao, King of the Rock. Yao is clearly stronger than the average man. But when Shang gave him some weights that he was already lifting with ease, the weight took Yao to the ground. He tanked an avalanche, and in Mulan 2 he survived falling off a cliff. He's clearly stronger and more durable than Mulan, but I would still place her above him for her battlefield intelligence. Then we have Clayton from Tarzan and Gaston. Both are incredibly physically fit, but the main thing that gives them the edge in combat is, well, they have fucking guns. Obviously, Gaston goes just above Clayton. Hello, Editing Jar here! I completely forgot to go over Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet. He has a laser pistol, and he's pretty fast on his hoverboard, so I have no doubt that he could take out both Gaston and Clayton. But of course, the character with the best parkour skill out of all of them, Tarzan, is up next on the list. He beat Clayton, regularly wrestles with gorillas, look out Harambe, and in the TV show he just did a whole bunch of other impressive shit. But now we have the Disney character with the second best parkour, Quasimodo. He chased away the captain of the guards with just a torch, who by the way I rank just below Shang. He took on a bunch of soldiers all at once. And while it is true that a group of people did manage to tie him up and throw food at him, wow, what assholes. Which is totally an anti-feat, by the way. Later on in the movie, he was shown to break chains. Metal chains! But what about Beast from Beauty and the Mr. Beast? He was obviously able to take on a pack of wolves by himself. He was hit by an arrow, knocked down a few stories, wasn't really trying to fight back for most of the confrontation, and he still won in the end. Some of you may think, he's above Quasimodo? How is that possible? Well, breaking chains is certainly impressive. In the second movie, Beast was able to throw an entire fucking organ. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, he only threw the keyboard. The organ fell down afterwards. And some of you also may be thinking, wait a minute, Just a Robot, I'm doing the math, and even if he did throw that organ, breaking metal chains is harder to do. Well, here's the reason why I placed the Beast above Quasimodo. He was getting hit by sound waves from the organ that was destroying the castle. While every other character on this list is below human level, or above human level, Beast and Quasimodo are just way above human level plus. I'll put Quasi at wall level and Beast at street level. Now we got the giant eagle from Rescuers Down Under. It's a giant fucking eagle. Enough said. Dumbo, because he's a fucking flying elephant. Imagine what he would be like when he grew up. Using their strength and flying advantage, they could possibly beat Beast or Quasimodo, but it could really go either way. That being said, a giant flying eagle would probably lose to a flying elephant. And now we're finally moving on to B tier, magic users. This is definitely the most subjective part of this video, because a lot of the magic users could easily be torn apart by Tramp, or they could take down a lot of people who are way above them in this list. How powerful is the blue fairy from Pinocchio? Well, she brought a wooden puppet to life, and later on turned him into a real boy. She can also turn into, I don't know, light or something, and, you know, move around that way. Guess that also includes flight. Oh yeah, she also has some clairvoyance. She was able to tell Pinocchio where his dad went, but we really don't know the full extent of her abilities. Maybe she could one-shot Hercules, or maybe Tramp could tear her apart. We just really don't know. Okay, this next person might shock you guys at first, but please, before you flip out and go to the comments, let me explain. Okay, so Aladdin, hang on, back up to the video. I see you going down to the comments. It's mostly because of his flying carpet. Some of you may say that's breaking the outside help rule, but it's a flying carpet and not a person. Yeah, it has a personality, but he clearly owns it. He's taken on powerful magic users multiple times, does parkour, and can use a sword. But of course, the strongest thing about him is his intelligence. Sure, Quasimodo and the Beast can break every bone in his body with a single punch. But do you know who could break all their bones in one punch? Hercules. And yes, Aladdin beat Hercules by outsmarting him. In the same episode, it was mentioned by Hades that Hercules picked up the sun and walked out with it through the underworld.
This foe actually lifted the sun?
Yeah, lousy demigod strength, huh? If he had a brain, then he'd be dangerous.
Plus, Aladdin is pretty lucky and tends to pick up magical artifacts. But I want you to keep this in mind. This is young Hercules, not a grown adult Hercules. Also, he took on Jafar when he turned into a massive snake, granted Jafar won, but then he used his quick thinking to entrap Jafar. Speaking of Jafar, he has 3 forms: his base form, his sorcerer form, and his ultimate genie form. His base form is pretty weak. All we see him do is hypnotize people, put on disguises, and I think he either used a smoke bomb or teleported or something. Yeah, in this form he isn't so impressive. Most of the characters on this list could easily take him down. But when he wishes to the genie to make him the most powerful sorcerer in the world, his power increases more than 100-fold. Do you think Simba could take him down? Well, a tiger charged at him and he de-aged it into a kitten. Maybe Dumbo could. Oh, he just turned an elephant back into a monkey.
Monkey!
Now granted, this ability could just be reversing the effects of a spell that was casted by a genie. There's a few other things he can do, but his levitation is quite impressive. Not only did he levitate multiple people at once, but he also levitated a tower all the way into the sky. And let's not forget about his giant snake form and everything else we don't know that he can do. And I could probably scale him a lot higher if I watch every episode of the Aladdin TV show. Keep in mind, he wished to be the most powerful sorcerer in the world, so whatever they can do, he can probably do as well. So yeah, considering what Jafar did to that tower, sending it all the way to a place where it snows when he was in the desert, he's easily over building level. Hell, he might be the first city buster on this list. As for his ultimate genie form, well, that's of course going to go up much higher on the list, so we'll get to it later. I would even place him above Maleficent. Granted, we couldn't see everything she could do, but what we saw Jafar do is a lot more impressive. Maleficent is pretty self-explanatory. She can teleport, shoot balls of energy strong enough to destroy brick walls, place curses on people, cover a kingdom in thorns, and of course, she can turn into a motherfucking dragon. I think she's roughly building level. But wasn't she taken out by a single stab from a sword? And couldn't her fire not even break through a guy's shield? Keep in mind, that's a magic shield and sword that were created by 3 fairies. As for the fairies, they're a bit too difficult to scale, and if that prince didn't have that sword and shield, he wouldn't have stood a chance against that dragon. The Shadow Man is also another magic user who is incredibly difficult to scale. Supposedly, if he reached his full power, he would have been able to kill everybody in a city with shadow monsters, but it's really vague how much control he has over them. I mean, after all, they did kill him at the end of the movie. But even if he did reach his full power, had full control over the shadow creatures, and killed everybody in the city, this still wouldn't make him city level because, well, he's not destroying the buildings, just the people. I still would place Jafar above him. But there is a magic user who I would put over Sorcerer Jafar. The fairy godmother from Cinderella. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, this old bitch? I mean, yeah, she could turn mice into horses, a pumpkin into a carriage, and animals into people, but her spell only lasted until midnight, and even if it lasted forever, she seems kind of lame. At least in comparison to other magic users on this list. Well, to that I have to say, Cinderella 3. In Cinderella 3, the evil stepmother gets the wand, and what was the first thing she did with it? Well, and I quote here, she calls upon all the forces in the universe and turns back time. Yeah, we could probably wank this to be universal level, but I'm just gonna keep it at a basic time hack. The fairy godmother could beat everybody on this list. All she would have to do is go back in time and, you know, pull a Terminator. And keep in mind, that's what we saw the evil stepmother do with the wand. The fairy godmother is old and clearly has a lot of experience. Imagine what she could do. There's only one magic user on this list who might be above her, and of course, that magic user is Merlin from Sword in the Stone. Merlin can use his magic to shapeshift into a lot of different creatures. He was even able to defeat Madame Mim, who shapeshifted into a dragon, just like Maleficent. He defeated her by turning himself into a germ. He can see into the future and probably do a lot of other stuff that we haven't seen him do. But of course, his most impressive ability is his time hacks. Such as when he went into the future just so he could have a vacation in Bermuda. Sure, Jafar being able to destroy an entire city is impressive and all, but time hacks are just so incredibly broken. Let's see if anyone in A tier can defeat them. Surprisingly, the superhuman tier list is actually quite short. Hand-drawn Disney movies didn't really have all that many superheroes. I'm also only calling it the superhuman tier list because I couldn't think of a better name. Let's start with the Alien Experiment 626, Stitch. He is bulletproof, fireproof, can think faster than a supercomputer, which isn't as impressive as it sounds. Unless, of course, Jumbo was referring to alien supercomputers, then that would be a hell of a lot more impressive. And to be fair, Stitch does seem like a pretty quick thinker. He's not that smart, but he figured out how to fly an alien spacecraft pretty quickly. He can shapeshift a little bit, has 4 plasma pistols, and of course he can lift objects up to 3,000 times his own weight. Keep in mind, this is not his average, this is his max. In Lilo and Stitch the movie, it is shown that he is not able to lift objects 3,001 times his own weight. And going off of the Lilo and Stitch show, he has a lot of other impressive feats, such as going toe-to-toe with the American Dragon. Maybe Jake Long versus Danny Phantom is closer than we once thought. And when you go through the list of all the weird alien experiments Stitch has gone up against, he probably has the most experience out of anyone on this list fighting unique opponents. He's dealt with multiple different elemental abilities, different types of magic, aliens stronger than himself, including at the very least 2 experiments more advanced than himself, 627 and 629. 628 never showed up. And no, I'm not including the Lilo and Stitch anime. I'm pretty sure that isn't canon anyways. By the way, if you want to see a fight on this channel between Shadow the Hedgehog and Experiment 627, I'll link it down below. Sure, Stitch could beat Maleficent and maybe Sorcerer Jafar, but all the fairy godmother would have to do is turn back time and interrupt his creation. Now let's move on to someone who has a lot less strength, but way more speed. Hell, I think he might actually be the fastest character on this list, and that's of course Peter Pan. He normally just flies at a couple dozen miles per hour. Using his dagger, he can take on the most pathetic pirate captain of all time, but he's still a pirate captain who knows how to use a sword. In Peter Pan 2, he was able to lift an anchor. He can also dodge cannonballs pretty easily. By the way, those things can break the sound barrier. That's the whistling sound you hear. But obviously, his greatest speed feat is when he flew from the Earth to Neverland. But where is Neverland? Well, it's in space. And yes, the movie makes it clear it's in space. But how fast can he get there? A week or month? Well, he just said follow the star until morning. So I guess a couple of hours then? Well, no, because Peter and the children return home before the parents come back. And they were just going to a party, not a week-long trip or anything. And it's also made clear in the movie that they do spend a few days in Neverland, so what could this mean? So I was originally going to do a bunch of complicated math to figure out which star Peter was going to, using the day that the movie came out, where the star would be relative to the moon, and you know, of course, using London as the location. But it really doesn't matter which star Peter Pan goes to, because he's actually traveling so fast, he's arriving before he left. In other words, Peter Pan is at the second highest tier of speed, also known as immeasurable speed. Speed is defined as distance divided by time. Peter Pan's speed is divided by negative time. Most people would probably tell you that Peter Pan is a huge number times the speed of light, but it's made clear in the movie when he's going at his full speed that that's a massive downplay. So yeah, I think it's quite possible for Peter Pan to defeat Merlin and the Fairy Godmother. To put that in perspective, the highest you can scale Goku's speed is an accessible speed, and that's one tier below Peter Pan's. But in terms of destructive capability, Peter Pan is pretty weak. Also, there's one more ability Peter Pan has. He's immortal. Not immortal in the sense that he can never die, but immortal in the sense that he never ages. So if you use an aging hacks ability, it's probably not gonna work on him. Anyways, let's move on to the final tier, S tier, or as I like to call it, God tier. In this list, I will be going over deities or deity-like beings. First, we have Queen Kida from Atlantis and Atlantis 2. In her base form, she can heal wounds on herself and on other people. She has a greatly extended lifespan, and honestly, out of all of the Disney princesses, even in her base form, she could take out all of them with her Atlantis technology. Yeah, Tramp ain't tearing this one apart. But when she merges with the Atlantis crystal, she becomes the deity of Atlantis. She's able to power a city with greater technology than what we have today for at least thousands of years, including but not limited to crystals that can increase your lifespan and heal you. Big stone flying sea creatures that can shoot energy blast. The Leviathan, a humongous lobster-like machine, estimated at a length of over 3,000 feet. Godzilla would look like a puppy compared to this thing. And yes, it can also shoot giant lasers. Oh yeah, also I just found this out. In a deleted scene, it creates a nuclear explosion on a Viking ship. And of course, she has control over the Atlantean Colossus. They created a giant shield big enough to cover an entire city, and strong enough to block a huge river of lava. Then they shattered the obsidian it created around them just afterwards. Yeah, this easily makes her city level. In Atlantis 2, there's a mind-controlling kraken, and also these ghost sand coyotes. But there's also two godlike beings who get the Spear of Odin. One was going to cover the sky in fire, and the other was going to cover the ground in ice. So given enough time, this would have been planet surface level. Once Queen Kida gets the spear, she lifts Atlantis from the bottom of the ocean all the way to the surface. So yeah, we have mountain level feats, island level feats, and given enough time, planet surface level feat. Out of everybody on this list so far, she has the most destructive capability. Now we're moving on to King Trident. Mythologically speaking, he is the son of Poseidon. Although this is never confirmed in the movie, but if it was, cool. The Little Mermaid would be half god and also the niece of Hercules. This trident has been shown to create whirlpools, storms, and increase the size of its user to being over 100 feet tall. Of course, we see it do most of this stuff in the hands of Ursula, but King Trident has had it for longer, so logically he could probably do even more with it. But all we do is see him shoot a few energy blasts, and in Little Mermaid 2, he freezes Ursula's sister in ice, while she's still alive and fully conscious of her surroundings, and Jesus, I think this might be the most fucked up thing to ever happen to a Disney villain. Also, he made his mermaid daughter into a human. That was a nice thing to do. But his trident has been shown limitations, such as when he was unable to destroy Ursula's contract. While I do think it's possible that he is on equal footing to Queen Kida in her crystal form, we really don't see the full extent of his power, so I'm gonna put her one rung below her, and Ursula with the trident just below him. Now, remember that Firefly from Princess and the Frog that I said was going up much higher on this list? Sure, in his base form, he's at the absolute bottom. But when he dies, he reincarnates into a star. That puts him above everybody else on this list so far, combined. Sure, we've seen possible planet surface level given enough time, but not moon level, planet level, and definitely not star level. Keep in mind, it takes the light from stars millions or billions of years to reach Earth. And his light traveled to Earth almost immediately. That could either mean that the light from his particular star travels much, much faster than light, that light travels much faster in the Princess and the Frog universe, or much like the Dark Gods from Warhammer 40k, once he exists, he always existed. If that is the case, then Merlin and the Fairy Godmother's time hacks ability will be useless. Peter Pan can fly to the star, but what's he gonna do to it? In order to take him down, we'll need someone who can destroy a star. So now it's time we bring in the big guns, Hercules. Bless my soul, Herc is certainly on a roll. This is the second video of mine he showed up in. If you want to know more information about him, check out my Maui vs. Hercules fight. Now, of course, we see Hercules plug up a volcano with a rock, throw 3 titans into space. But in the Hercules TV show, it's mentioned by Hades that he picked up the sun from the underworld and walked out with it.
This foe actually lifted the sun?
Yeah, lousy demigod strength, huh? If he had a brain, then he'd be dangerous.
He also lifted the heavens for Atlas for a little bit. But keep in mind, all of those things happened when he was young. As an adult, him and Pegasus flew so fast that they caused the Marilyn Monroe constellation's dress to flip up. And you know those titans he threw into space? Well, 2 of them were the Lava and Ice Titan. They were able to defeat Zeus. And keep in mind, Zeus manipulated multiple stars to paint a picture of Hercules in the sky. This all may seem pretty impressive, but Hercules also has his god form. In this form, he doesn't age, just like Peter Pan. He can touch ghosts. And even the Fates, who have clairvoyance just like Merlin, were unable to cut his string of life. The only way to defeat a god is to either entrap them, or use this potion that makes them mortal. Hades, where did you get that? He could easily destroy the Firefly from Princess and the Frog when he's in his star form. Merlin and the Fairy Godmother could turn back time, but what are they gonna do? He's super strong even as a baby. Jafar can de-age him, but what's that gonna do? He's still super strong. So yep, Hercules beats everybody on this list so far combined. King Trident's blast couldn't even destroy Ursula's contract. Do you think it's gonna do anything to Hercules in his god form? Someone who you couldn't even kill by cutting his string of fate? As for Cerberus and other monsters from Hercules like him, the Titans and the other gods, they roughly go somewhere here on this list, but I would say Hercules is still above all of them. But what about Zeus? Well, he manipulated hundreds of stars to create a picture of Hercules in the sky. He can shoot lightning bolts, which are pretty damn fast, but they're not as fast as those stars were moving when he manipulated them. Yeah, he makes the speed of light look like a statue. Between Zeus and Hercules, it could go either way. Zeus does have more impressive feats than Hercules and far more experience, but Hercules did beat the 2 titans who beat Zeus along with another one. So for now, I'll just say they're basically on equal footing. Personally, I rank them at constellation level. While not technically on the Versus Wiki, I don't treat the Versus Wiki like it's my holy bible. Constellation level is pretty self-explanatory. It's above large solar system level, but below small galaxy level. Now the next 2 people on our list is the Friendly Genie and Ultimate Genie Jafar. They both claimed that they had cosmic powers over the universe. Jafar literally stated, and I quote, "The universe is mine to command, to control." If this statement is to be taken literally, they're both universal level. And this statement is backed up by a little bit when Genie says phenomenal cosmic powers, and a bunch of stars and planets are flying around him. By the way, according to the episode The Old Switcheroo, Genie is at least 65,000 years old. Basically every magical power we went through on this list, Genie can do all of them, and more. Transforming a monkey into an elephant? Yep. Seeing into the future even more clearly than Merlin can? Yep. It would be easier to list all the things these genies can't do. And that is 3 things. They can't make people fall in love, bring someone back from the dead, or kill anyone. But they do have one very severe weakness. If their lamp is destroyed, they die. But Aladdin wished for Genie's freedom, so he no longer has that limitation. But by far, the most impressive thing about these genies is they can make someone more powerful than themselves. Jafar wished to be the most powerful genie in the world, and Genie granted that wish. So logically speaking, could someone ask Jafar to make them a more powerful genie than him? And could the next person after that do the same? And they keep doing that in an infinite loop? So yeah, they could possibly push themselves to being multiversal level. So are the genies the most powerful beings in the hand-drawn Disney movies? Well, there might be two who are above them, but keep in mind this is a pretty big maybe. Let's first go through Chernabog from Disney's Fantasia. I've heard he's the most powerful Disney villain of all, but I don't know if that's true or not. But if it is, well, I guess he's above Jafar. He has fire powers, can transform creatures, he's pretty big, and he can probably do a lot of other stuff. But I haven't really seen any evidence that it was confirmed by Disney 100% that he's the most powerful. So that's why I said this is a pretty big maybe. Now finally, at the very end of our list, we get to maybe the most powerful Disney character, but probably isn't, Yen Sid from Disney's Fantasia. Who in the verse could be more powerful than the creator of the verse himself? Yen Sid, for those of you who don't know, is Disney spelled backwards, and Mickey is literally his apprentice. When Mickey puts on his hat, his power is increased. But keep in mind, this is not the hat giving him the power, because Yen Sid reversed everything Mickey did, even without the hat. Mickey has a dream sequence of himself controlling the waves, the stars. Yes, this is a dream sequence, but Mickey more than likely thought of this due to watching Yen Sid do it himself. And if Yen Sid is truly the self-insert of Disney himself, he would logically have the power of all the Disney characters combined, be it hand-drawn animation, computer animation, or even live action. Or, who knows, maybe I'm just talking out of my ass and Tramp could tear him apart. Unfortunately, there is not a full guide on what he can do. But what do you guys think? Would you like me to talk about the CGI films next? Well, get this video to 10,000 likes and I will. Did you disagree with anything on this list? Tell me in the comments section down below. Now before I recap all the Disney characters weakest to strongest, along with going over a few of the ones I missed, I just want you guys to know that I'm using a different microphone to record this part of the video. Yeah, I recorded this video several months ago, but it just kept on getting pushed back further and further. Anyways, now let's go over the list. The Mouse from Dumbo, Gus, Bernard and Bianca, Basil of Baker Street, Ratigan, Jake the Australian Mouse, Thomas O'Malley, Snow White, Pongo, Briar Rose, Belle, Todd and Copper, Dodger, Cinderella, the Red Mouse from Cinderella and Lucifer in their human forms, the Prince from Snow White, Prince Naveen, Arthur, Taran from Black Cauldron when he got the magic sword, Prince Eric, he's one of the characters I forgot to go over. He's strong and can steer a ship through a storm. Bambi, Ariel, Pocahontas, Tramp, Prince Charming, no, not him, the one from Cinderella, Simba, Scar, and Mufasa, Shere Khan, Mushu, another character I forgot to go over. He tanked a horse stomping on him, and his fire breath is pretty impressive for his size. Kianai, I'm probably saying his name wrong, but he's also a character I forgot to go over. He's a bear. Enough said. And he's also a good hunter in his human form. Shang, Mulan, Robin Hood, Clayton and Gaston with guns. I also forgot about Yzma from Emperor's New Groove. Her potions can change her into a lot of different animals, including a whale. Tarzan, Quasimodo, the Golden Eagle from Rescuers Down Under. Dumbo, Scar when he had magic powers. Yes, this is a thing, you can look it up. Jim Hawkins, Monstro from Pinocchio, I mean he's an evil whale after all. Aladdin, Blue Fairy, Shadow Man, Maleficent, Stitch, Princess Kita after she merged with the Crystal of Atlantis, King Trident and Ursula with the Trident, Peter Pan, the Fairy Godmother or the Evil Stepmother with the Wand, the Firefly after becoming a star, Hercules and Zeus, the Friendly Genie, Jafar in his genie form, and if we highball them, Chernabog and Yen Sid. Now I know you guys have been waiting for the next episode of Fast Fictional Fights, but unfortunately it's just not in my budget. So for now, I'm gonna use this channel just to upload power scaling videos, and hopefully eventually I'll raise enough money through this channel to afford my own Death Battle-like Versus series. Also, if you like this video, on my main channel I went over every single Disney live-action remake, so if you have the time, please go check it out. Next video on this channel will be about how a war between the Viltrumites and the Saiyans would go down.